Hi, this is Melody Beaver with Weekend Extra, Pastor Ryan, and we're just kind of hanging out after the service. We were wrapping up Habits and Heartbeats this weekend. So I know that we've got like just a little window of time, Pastor Ryan, that you have to stay in to get your message done.
Sure.
And that's the joy of the Weekend Extra, is we can dive in a little bit more. Is there anything like that that's on your heart this weekend?
Yes, for sure. I mean, when I think about this series and even this conversation, if I had one more conversation to have, I was blown away. I read this book called Questioning Evangelism. Really good book called Questioning Evangelism.
Okay.
And here was the whole premise. They said, the author said, we often think that when we're sharing our faith, what we should do is talk all the time, right? That we should be the ones presenting and sharing and trying to like get the presentation out. And his premise was, he said, if you look at Jesus and how Jesus basically evangelized, that he would often ask questions. He would always often meet people where they are, ask them questions about what they were thinking, and would interact and kind of dialogue with them based on their questions. And so that book was super duper helpful for me. And so I was thinking about that this weekend as we share our story. Even kind of the premise of this whole message was that someone else is asking a question before you're sharing your story, right? So they're kind of triggering that process. I would say the same effect can happen, though, when someone's sharing about their own faith or their own life. And if we take on the kind of the mindset of being inquisitive and we ask questions about where they are, like if somebody said something like, hey, I don't think that God sends good people to hell, right? For example.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Yeah, something like that,
good example.
right? Where we could say, okay, we would say, that's fascinating. So tell me more about like your view of heaven and hell. Right? So you believe in hell. Like, to help me understand more about that. How did you come to know that there is, or believe that there's a heaven and a hell? And they might think, I don't know how I
don't know. Yeah.
Right? And then we could keep kind of not in an aggressive way or a disrespectful way, a
gentleness and respect. Yes.
You got it. Genuinely inquisitive.
Yeah.
Right? Way that we could, of course, with gentleness and respect, meet them there and keep being curious about where they are. Because a lot of the times I think what can happen is if we just walk with people through their own thought process and belief process, they can self-discover, I don't really know what I believe. It's kind of what we talked about tonight.
Right.
And if I don't really know what I believe or why I believe it, I might actually be open to discovering more about what you believe.
I love that, because when I was sitting there listening tonight, I was thinking, okay, so maybe we could talk about our presentation. Like, okay, do we practice that in front of the mirror, or do we write it down? Which I think is valid to think about. Sure. But I love what you said of and that's a very Jewish way of thinking, of rabbis would ask questions. They would ask questions, and I love that.
Yeah, and you start to think about, we all feel, I feel loved when people ask me questions, when they're genuinely curious, and we can it helps to put the spotlight in a loving way on them.
Right.
And say like, hey, I want to know what's in your mind.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to shove something down your throat or get a check and a tally somewhere that led a certain amount of people to Christ.
That is so Christianese, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because we think, okay, we gotta do it this way, and we gotta say it this way, and I love the question thing. I'm going to remember that.
Yeah, I think it's just, for me, it makes me feel like, well, that makes sharing my faith more fun, because all I'm trying to do is understand and help kind of pull out of you what you believe in a loving, gentle way. And then you might come to the point and say, well, what do you believe?
Yeah.
Right? They might be able to turn it, and we would be able to share the hope that we have, which is pretty powerful. So that book is, again, Questioning Evangelism. Super good. It's an easy read.
Do you know who the author is? Do you remember the author?
Oh, it'd be really cool if I did.
That's okay. Google it.
If you Google it, it's really good. So much I don't remember the author.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah. Also, I wanted to ask you about, you were talking about the reverence and what was the other word?
Respect.
Respect and reverence. Can you go into a little bit more thought of that?
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, just about the concepts between the two, the difference between them. I think when someone reveres Christ, there's a drastic difference in how they live and how they see their life and how they prioritize. That kind of Christ-centered thought and lifestyle is so much different than a cultural Christianity that just goes to church, which is fine. It's good to go to church, right? Participates in religious activities, says I'm connected to Jesus, but when push comes to shove, there's a different level of loyalty to Jesus, right? In between those respect and reverence lines. When I think at the end of the day, what the Lord is looking for is He's looking for us to land here where we make Jesus Lord in our hearts. And sometimes that's a bigger decision than the initial decision to say, like, Jesus, will you forgive me for my sins?
Right.
You know, at least
say the right words, do the right.
Yeah. And so I think, especially like in our situation where it's still kind of okay to go to church and be connected to grace is exciting and exciting things are happening. I think it's a really significant conversation to say we're not just talking about being kind of a fan of Jesus or a cheerer of Jesus. I want to be someone who's actually a Christ follower.
Yeah.
You know, and that difference, I think, will show up in a gazillion ways. I think that's why Peter starts that passage that way. Is he's setting us up to say things will get really clear when I revere Christ as Lord, not me as Lord, and Jesus as the engine to get my dreams to come true.
Right, not the Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Not the Easter Bunny.
Sure.
Hey.
Yeah. So that's I think it's a big deal. And when I share my faith, you feel it more and more because people ask questions. When they're asking questions about our faith, really, really quickly, you get to that. My faith only makes sense if it's in the reverence category.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're going to ask, well, how does it all work? And everything points towards me being all in. It's the only time that our faith actually makes sense.
Right. Yeah. And just the mantra of my life, especially lately, is just bring glory to God.
Yes.
It's not about Ryan. It's not about me. It's not about grace. It's bringing glory to God in whatever we do.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I think that's what the Lord wants in our hearts.
Absolutely. And that is a lifetime process.
Oh, we're on a journey, right?
We are.
Me too, yeah.
We are. So we're going to wrap it up. And you know what? It's Easter. Let's talk about Easter for a minute because there's a lot going on this week. A lot going on. Can you?
Yeah, I'll do a quick plug and then we'll wrap
go ahead.
up. But if you can make time for communion, I encourage you to do that. It's one of my favorite times to recenter my heart and mind around the sacrifice of Christ.
Absolutely.
It's not easy, but it's good, right? To be in the room and take time to remember. So encourage that. And then with invites for Easter, it's still a moment in our culture where people will come to church because it's Easter.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
So we want to take advantage of that and not miss that window, right? To remember Christ at communion, to invite folks at Easter, and just really take advantage of this week.
Thank you for that. And we will see you next week on Weekend Extra.